I'm Jake, 26, and I never thought I'd find myself in this situation, but here we are. My girlfriend, Jessica, who's 24, and I had been together for almost 2 years, and things were great, or so I thought. We had built a solid relationship, sharing dreams and adventures together. Trust was a cornerstone of our bond, and I believed we were both committed to making it work. But one night, everything changed. It all began on a Friday night when Jessica decided to go out with her friends to celebrate Karen's birthday. I had no qualms about her going out. In fact, I encouraged her to have fun and enjoy herself. We had a long week, and she deserved a break. I stayed home, binge-watching our favorite series, feeling a little lonely but hopeful she'd have a great time. The texts between us were light and playful until the late-night messages started to dwindle. I didn't think much of it at first, chalking it up to her being caught up in the festivities. But around 1 a.m., I received a text from Jessica. "Hey babe. Having an amazing time, but I might be a little late coming home. Love you." The message made me smile. I felt reassured, thinking she was having a good time. Little did I know, the amazing time she was having would shatter my world in just a few hours. Around 3 a.m., I received a video call from Jessica. Her face was flushed, and she was giggling uncontrollably. "Jake, you won't believe what just happened," she exclaimed, slurring her words slightly. At first, I thought it was just drunken antics, but as she began to explain, my heart sank. She had kissed another guy, a guy I didn't know, and she was trying to downplay it by calling it a drunken mistake. The shock of it hit me like a ton of bricks. I remember sitting there in disbelief, trying to process what I was hearing. "What do you mean you kissed someone?" "Jess, this isn't funny," I said, my voice trembling. She waved it off, laughing nervously. "It was just a mistake. I was drunk, and it didn't mean anything." But the laughter didn't help ease the hurt. If anything, it made it worse. After the call, I was a mess. I couldn't sleep. All I could think about was her lips on someone else's. How could she dismiss it so easily? I felt betrayed and confused. When she finally came home in the early morning hours, I confronted her. "You think it's okay to kiss someone else and just brush it off as a drunken mistake?" I asked, my voice rising in anger. She looked shocked and hurt by my reaction, which only fueled my rage. "It was a mistake. I didn't mean to hurt you, Jake," she pleaded, tears streaming down her face. But her tears only made me angrier. "You don't get to do something like that and expect me to just forgive you," I yelled. The argument escalated quickly, filled with hurtful words and accusations. In the heat of the moment, I said things I didn't mean, but I couldn't help myself. The trust one had in her felt shattered. In the days that followed, we barely spoke. I needed time to think, to process what had happened. Jessica tried reaching out, but I was distant. I wasn't sure if I could get over what she had done, and the more I thought about it, the more I realized I needed to make a choice. I decided to leave for a few days, staying at my friend Alex's place to clear my head. During that time, I reflected on our relationship. It wasn't just about the kiss, it was about the trust that had been broken. Jessica had always been my rock, but now I felt like I was standing on shaky ground. I missed the good times we had, the laughter and love that filled our days, but I couldn't ignore the betrayal. After a few days of contemplation, I knew I had to confront the situation head-on. When I returned home, Jessica was waiting for me, her eyes red from crying. She looked genuinely remorseful, but I wasn't sure if I could believe her. "Jake, I'm so sorry. I made a horrible mistake," she said, her voice trembling. I could see she was hurting, but I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. "How do I know this won't happen again?" I asked, searching her eyes for sincerity. She promised me she would cut ties with the guy she kissed, insisting it meant nothing. But I found it hard to take her words at face value. The emotional turmoil weighed heavy on my heart, and the trust that had once been the foundation of our relationship felt like it had crumbled to dust. A few weeks passed, and we tried to rebuild what we had. We went on dates, talked things through, and I thought we were making progress. But then I discovered she was still in contact with the guy. It felt like a slap in the face. I thought you said you cut him out of your life. I confronted her, my voice barely containing my hurt. She hesitated, her eyes darting away, and my heart sank. I didn't want to be rude. He reached out to apologize, and I thought it would be fine to reply, she said, avoiding my gaze. You have to understand, Jake. It was just a mistake. Her words echoed in my mind, but they felt hollow. I realized then that I was not okay with how things were progressing. I needed a reality check of my own, so I decided to take a drastic step. I organized a night out with my friends, but this time I made sure to invite the guy she kissed. Let's call him Ryan. My friends were skeptical, but I wanted to confront the situation head-on. I wanted Jessica to see what she lost. I hoped that by showing her I could move on, it would either motivate her to take our relationship seriously or help me find the closure I needed. The night was wild, filled with laughter and drinks, but there was a heaviness in my heart. When Jessica found out I had invited Ryan, she flipped out. You're seriously going to hang out with him? After everything, she shouted, her eyes blazing with anger. Why not? You say it was a mistake, but here we are pretending nothing happened, I replied, my voice steady. The tension between us was palpable. She stormed out, and I could see her emotional state unraveling. For the first time, I felt a sense of empowerment. I wasn't going to let her dictate how I felt anymore. As the night wore on, I found myself laughing and enjoying the company of my friends, Ryan included. He was surprisingly charming and friendly, and it was hard to stay mad at him when he was being so nice. I realized he was just a guy who had made a mistake too. But that didn't stop the tumultuous feelings from boiling inside me every time I thought of Jessica. The next day, I was on a high from the night out, feeling like I had taken back some control over my life. But then I received a text from Jessica. We need to talk. This is getting out of hand. My stomach dropped. I knew this was going to be a pivotal moment in our relationship. When we met up later, her face was flushed with frustration. You can't just go out with him and expect me to be okay with it, she exclaimed, her voice shaky. You can't keep using this against me. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my emotions in check. I'm not using it against you, Jess. I'm trying to show you what this has done to me and to us. We went back and forth, emotions running high. I could see the cracks forming in our relationship, and it broke my heart. I don't know if I can trust you anymore, I admitted, the weight of my words hanging heavy in the air. You've got to give me a reason to believe you. Jessica looked pained, her expression shifting from anger to vulnerability. I'll do anything, Jake. Please don't walk away from me. Her desperation struck a chord in me, and for a moment I thought about the love we had shared. But as I looked into her eyes, I could still feel that wound reopening. Days turned into weeks, and while we were trying to make things work, the trust was still lacking. I noticed Jessica was still texting Ryan occasionally, despite her promises. It felt like a betrayal all over again, and I began to question whether our relationship was worth saving. Finally, I reached my breaking point. This is it, Jess, I told her one night, my voice firm. If you can't commit to rebuilding our trust and cutting him out completely, then we're done. The fear in her eyes was evident, but I felt resolute. She nodded slowly, tears streaming down her face. I'll do better, I promise. I love you too much to let this ruin us. It was a heartfelt plea, but I wasn't sure if I could take her word for it anymore. I had put up with the pain for too long, and I could feel myself beginning to emotionally detach. As the days passed, I contemplated whether this was the right decision for us. I felt a mix of hope and despair. Could we really overcome this? One night, I went to bed feeling exhausted and confused, and that's when I had a dream that changed everything. In the dream, I saw Jessica and Ryan together, laughing, and it hurt more than I could imagine. When I woke up, I knew I had to make a choice. I couldn't keep living in uncertainty. So, I took the leap and told Jessica we needed a break. I need to focus on myself right now, I said, trying to be calm. Her eyes widened in shock, and she reached for my hand. "Please, Jake, don't do this. I'll change. I'll cut him off." But I could see the fear in her eyes. Was it fear of losing me, or fear of facing the consequences of her actions? The break lasted for a few weeks, and in that time, I rediscovered myself. I went out with friends, traveled a bit, and began to enjoy life again. I didn't miss the drama, but I did miss Jessica. I missed the laughter we shared, but I also knew I couldn't go back to the same cycle of betrayal. Then, one evening, I got a text from Jessica asking to meet up. My heart raced. Was she going to finally make a real commitment to change? When we met, she looked different, more mature and introspective. "I've realized so much during this time apart," she began, her voice steady. "I messed up, and I'm sorry. I want to rebuild what we had." I listened intently, torn between wanting to believe her and the lingering hurt from her past actions. "What are you willing to do to show me that you're serious?" I asked, cautious but hopeful. She paused, and I could see the gears turning in her mind. "I'll cut off all contact with Ryan," she said firmly. "I'll go to counseling if I need to. I want to work on our trust." Her sincerity struck a chord in me, and I felt a flicker of hope. "Okay," I replied slowly, "let's take it one step at a time." The next few months were a roller coaster of emotions. We went to couples counseling, which helped us address our issues. It was tough, and we often revisited painful memories, but slowly, we began to rebuild our trust. Jessica cut ties with Ryan completely, and though I was still wary, I could see genuine effort on her part. But just when I thought we were making progress, I found out something that shook me to my core. One night, I was out with friends when I received a call from an unknown number. It was Ryan. "Hey, Jake," he said casually. "I just wanted to let you know Jessica reached out to me last week." My heart dropped. "What do you mean?" I asked, struggling to keep my composure. "She told me she cut you out of her life." Ryan chuckled lightly. "Yeah, well, she reached out to apologize, but don't worry, she didn't mean anything by it. Just thought you should know." I ended the call, my heart racing, filled with a mix of anger and disbelief. The next day, I confronted Jessica. "Did you talk to Ryan?" I demanded, feeling betrayed all over again. She looked taken aback, but the guilt was clear in her eyes. "I swear, Jake, it wasn't what you think. I just wanted to make sure he understood how much he hurt me too." But the damage was done, and I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. "I thought we were past this," I said, my voice cracking. "How can I trust you again when you keep going back to him?" The tears fell freely from her face as she tried to explain herself, but I could feel the walls closing in. This time, I wasn't sure if I could forgive her. The emotional weight of the situation felt unbearable. I took a step back and told her I needed time to think. The break had felt like a new beginning, but now it felt like we were stuck in the same cycle again. I spent the next few days reflecting on what I truly wanted. Did I want to continue fighting for a relationship that seemed destined for heartbreak? Finally, I decided I needed to make a choice, whether to fight for love or let go for good. I reached out to Jessica, asking for one last conversation. "I want to be honest with you," I said when we met. "I don't think I can do this anymore. The trust is broken, and every time I think we're moving forward, something happens to drag us back." She looked devastated. "I never meant to hurt you, Jake. I've been trying to do better." But I shook my head, feeling like I was losing myself in this chaos. "I know you're trying, but I need to think about my own happiness too," I said softly. As I walked away from our conversation, I felt a mix of sadness and relief. It was a painful choice, but I knew it was necessary for my own mental health. In the following weeks, I focused on rebuilding my life without her. I immersed myself in my work, hung out with friends, and started finding joy again. But just when I thought I was moving on, I received a text from Jessica, asking to meet up one last time. I hesitated, but something inside me urged me to hear her out. When we met, she looked different, more resolved. I've spent a lot of time reflecting, she said, her voice steady. And I understand now that I need to let you go if it's what you truly want. Her words surprised me. You're okay with this? I asked, still unsure. I want you to be happy, even if it's not with me, she replied, tears in her eyes. That was the moment I realized that love isn't just about being together. Sometimes it's about letting go when you know it's best for both of you. With a heavy heart, we parted ways for the last time. I felt a sense of closure, but the ache of what could have been lingered. As I drove home that night, I realized that life had its twists and turns, and sometimes, the hardest choices lead to the most significant growth. I knew I would be okay. Months later, as I sat on my couch watching the sunset, I received a message from Jessica. Hey, I just wanted to check in. I hope you're doing well. I smiled at the message. It was a reminder that although things didn't work out, we had both grown from the experience. I replied, I'm doing great, thanks for checking in. I wish you all the best. And with that, I closed a chapter of my life that had been filled with heartbreak and lessons. The road ahead looked bright, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next.